In Zimbabwe, that has been a mantra here in Kempton Park as the government officials and, of course, the international partners of Zimbabwe, but, of course, the potential investors who are looking at so many areas, whether you're looking at agriculture, mining, and many other key sectors as well. But the regional bloc is also here in the building. Let's hear now from the Executive Secretary, Mr. Magosi. Thank you so much indeed, sir, for your time. During your address, you spoke about the centrality of Zimbabwe in terms of the vision for the SADC, whether you're looking at ICT, energy, tourism, and many other aspects. But let's look at your presence here today, looking at Zimbabwe's challenges. I mean, when it comes to the economic woes, it's fairly well documented. But tell us about your participation here today.
No, thank you very much. Zimbabwe, as you know, is one of the SADC member states. And generally, it has been going through challenges, as you know, economically. But this was a great opportunity for people to come and appreciate why it's necessary for investors to go into Zimbabwe and all the other partners as well to understand a little bit about Zimbabwe. So I want first to commend the government for creating this opportunity for this engagement to happen. And the reason why here ourselves is because not only they are a part of us, but they happen to be placed centrally. Somehow God made it this way, but they are central. Everything that we do, and the bulk of the discussions, as you've heard, hinges around infrastructure development. So when you talk infrastructure, which is an enabler for all other sectors to take root, whether it's health, whether it's education, you first have to start with infrastructure. So infrastructure is in terms of roads, in terms of energy, which all of us need in this region and probably here in South Africa as well. Zimbabwe is at the core. It's right in the middle. So ICT, we pull it through there. The corridors that I spoke about, and the main one, which is the north-south corridor, passes through Zimbabwe as well. So you cannot, whether it's tourism and all these others, you need Zimbabwe to be a part of that discussion. So that was the messaging I was giving particularly to the investors here. And it's pleasing that even beyond my statement, business people are also saying, we are in Zimbabwe, including pension funds. You understand, pension funds manage people's funds, but they are in Zimbabwe. So others who perhaps are getting messages that may not be the right messaging from wherever they are getting it, whether it's media like yourselves, they need to go into Zimbabwe and understand Zimbabwe. We are not saying everything is perfect in Zimbabwe. No, the government, the country still has a lot of work to do to convince people that the environment is conducive, as it is, as businesses have shown to us today, but others, especially those that are outside, to come in and see for themselves and then put in resources. We heard today that many countries are in here. They have been mentioned. They are there, they are putting their resources, 1.7 billion and so forth. So that's a lot of money that goes into it. So others might miss out because they are just sitting on this information or disinformation about Zimbabwe. But my message was also that the government and the country still have to work hard to convince people that indeed it is safe, that indeed when you invest your money, you'll actually get your return back. And the commitment has been made by President Mnangagwa, by the Minister of Finance, and now his colleagues here. So Zimbabwe, I think, is open now for business.
And just once again, sir, you spoke about the macroeconomic fundamentals, where you also spoke about their bold intervention, where we have seen the new Zimbabwe gold currency as one of the very critical measures in addressing some of their challenges. But also, this is a country that has endured sanctions. I mean, you spoke about the partial removal of these sanctions, but to all intents and purposes, we've seen SADC also being a champion in calling for the total removal of these sanctions.
No, indeed. Even if you can label them the sanctions and say they are partial, they remain sanctions regardless. Even if it is one person, investors outside, especially those that are from the developed world, the moment they see or hear the word sanction, they couldn't care how it is disaggregated. So this is why SADC messaging consistently has been total removal, unconditional removal of sanctions, so that Zimbabwe can then attract investment. Zimbabwe can then join meaningful activation of economic development like all the other 15 member states. So we are unrelenting on that one, and we want this to be done. Even this partial thing, I mean, on the head of state who's bringing on these changes, who needs partnership, and they are placed well. Those that are placing those, they know they have their own reasons. But we are saying you need to remove that so that you open doors for business people to actually come into Zimbabwe. So it's an important element for us as SADC.
Peace and security, while we still do have you, sir, we know that you have been busy, whether in Mozambique, whether in the DRC. How are those operations going so far?
Yeah. Yes, as you said, peace and security, especially for us, if we have to integrate, if we have to grow as a business, we need to be peaceful. We need to make sure that security of people's investment are secured and assured. So peace and security is central. The reason why we're in Mozambique, I think you know, is that we need to help our sister country deal with terrorism there. Now we're in DRC to help our sister country as well contain what is happening in Eastern DRC, stabilize it and allow for humanitarian efforts to take root, but also to protect civilians, especially those that are internally displaced. So we take peace and security seriously. And this is why, by extension, when you go into election observations, you know, I think there are about 6 countries in our region now, including here in South Africa, who will be going for elections. This is part of peace and security apparatus. We look at the environment and we make a decision as a bloc that, yes, a country like South Africa is safe, it's ready to hold elections, and then we go in with our observation mission. And if there are certain issues, we raise those issues and we work together with all our structures to make sure that the countries are successful. So that's, again, helping peace and security so that democracy, everything else flourishes without issues.
All right. And just before I let you go, say, on that very particular theme, big day for South Africa, 29th of May. We know that SADC has always been a very critical partner when it comes to observation, for the preconditions, for the elections to go peacefully and also in a very conducive environment. Your message to the political players in South Africa and those who will be voting.
Yes. No, certainly. What we are saying is that the simple thing that we use as SADC is 3 instruments: the Constitution, the electoral laws, and the guidelines that we have. And we've got bodies like the IEC, which should be independent, not only in name, but which must be observed to be that independent. So those are the things that we do. We encourage South Africans, let me start with citizens, to play their part, to go out and vote and elect people of their choices, leaders of their choices, and government of their choices. And the political leaders who are saying it's okay to have differences, political, economic differences, but those should be done in such a way that they don't raise emotions, they don't raise temperatures of people, of citizens, to avoid conflict, to avoid anything that could actually create a problem for the hosting and the holding of elections. So we always are looking for a peaceful election process. We'll be here, our observers will be here. You might not be aware that on the 29th of May, 2 countries are holding elections. It's yourself, South Africa, and Madagascar. So we have to split ourselves on that day. But we are just wishing South Africans peaceful elections.
All right. So thank you so much indeed for your time. Of course, that's a main message there from SADC Executive Secretary Mr. Magosi, right here on the sidelines of Zimbabwe Investment Summit here in Kempton Park, really talking about how SADC is supporting these initiatives in terms of also economic integration for the regional bloc. Khayelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Kempton Park.